Good evening, everybody. You would have seen many projects and task works that have been assigned. And foremost thing we have to think about in any project is to see how much effort it needs, how many people needs to be involved, what kind of skills they need, how much time it will take, and these are the things that are coming in the foremost thoughts. And we need to prepare for all these aspects and get ready for the work. So this manpower planning is related to this activity where the people and the skills and estimation are happening, and we plan for the work to be done properly. Let us jump in. The foremost thing is the objectives of the manpower planning. The the foremost thing is the purpose is to optimally use the resources. So we have to calculate the exact number of people that are needed for a work and use them optimally so that the cost wise it is effective. We can plan for future needs, like we can estimate what the market trend will be and technically how it will proceed, and based on these estimates, like we can judge how much effort and how many people we need. A skill gap is something like we need say like 20 people and we have 15 people in our company, so there is a gap of 5. And if we consider the skill set, then we have to, it becomes slightly complex, like how many people know whatever is required to know. So that calculations comes in, and we need to plan accordingly to fill this gap. Like I said before, our aim is to reduce the cost. One way to reduce cost is to cut down the recruitment and training cost. So if you have to recruit a new person, you need to train them. So instead of that, if we can find a resource within our current department or the company and utilize the same person to do this particular activities or whatever the required future needs are. If we can do that, then we are cutting down the recruitment and training cost. The upper management likes to have data and for before the time. So well ahead of time, they like to need to see what is what and how much we need, and all kind of data are needed, and that is possible only by planning properly. The manpower planning comes into this picture and provides all these data to the management on time so that they can take decisions accordingly. Like for example, training requirements or recruitment or any kind of decisions can be done well ahead. The foremost important thing about manpower planning is aligning the organizational goals with the workforce that is available. So that kind of matching as in synchronization is required, and that is the one important task of this manpower planning. Why do we need manpower planning? The like we discussed before, the, the 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 importance is it helps the organization to know what is going to happen. So it is prepared with the workforce and it is ready for the upcoming projects. So some cases like there are shortage of skill set, or like the demand changes, like the management may change some of their objectives, or the market condition may change, competitors may have come up with new ideas and things like that. So there are going to be a lot of changes happening in the domain. So these these are risks, like we didn't plan for or we didn't expect these things. So these risks can be handled very well if there's a planning ahead. Like there is a proper planning from our side in the skill set. We can address these things in a much better manner than without having any plan. This manpower planning also looks at what skill set we need and comes up with some training options for the existing employees and also for the new employees so that they'll be prepared for what we need to do. And this encourages the continuous learning process. Why we need manpower planning is the industrial trend is always on change. So we need to adapt to those changes and be ready to tackle things. So for that, we need this manpower planning. There are many legal complaints, like there is labor laws, and the company itself has some governance rules and regulations, and there are many things that needs to be adhered. So we have to prepare for those things also when we are considering the skill set. What are all the activities we need to do in manpower planning? One is the objectives, like we saw before. The organizational objectives need to be analyzed and understood what the organization is trying to do. So we need to clear cut mention what are all the necessary things or activities that the organization is trying to do and be prepared for that. Then we need to get the number of people we have, what are the skills that they have, what are their qualifications, and what are the roles and responsibilities they are taking. So these kind of things we need to assess and make sure that we are prepared. By doing these things, the first one and the second one, we compare what is the organizational goals and we compare the workforce, and easily we can come up with the skills gap. So like we said, once we know the gap, we know that what is the need, what is the workforce that is needed, what do we have now, and what is that to be filled. So we can predict what needs to be done. This is the gap analysis which we mentioned now. So we find what is the area that needs to be filled in. Once we know what has been filled in, we can come up with some plan of how to address this gap and how to come up with the required strength. It could be in some cases like we may have to cut down the number of people so that we have to trim down to match the exact requirement, so that we cut the cost in those sense also. In some cases, like we have to add the new members so that they become more efficient and able to address the requirement. In some cases, we don't have to cut down and we don't have to add, but we have to retrain the current set of people to match the requirement. So these kind of things we need to plan and we have to train them and implement accordingly. Finally, like we have to check all this process that have been happening properly, get feedbacks, get employee satisfaction index, and get the project progress metrics. So all these numbers we gather and make sure that whatever plan we have put up is actually working and being fruitful for the organization. So that kind of monitoring and feedback and reviews needs to happen. What affects manpower planning? Like what is actually is can go wrong. So one thing is we can split it into two things. Like one is the internal factors and external factors. And internal factors is the organization, what they set as the goal, how they want to implement it, and all those points will reflect on the manpower planning. Like the skills that will be influenced by this goals and strategies. And as we saw before, like we have to assess the current number of workers and the skill set and their competency and everything, so that we know what is their capacity, and so we have to take appropriate action to step forward. The last is the budget, like how much budget we have for this manpower planning, how much we can train people, do we have budget to recruit people. So all these things comes into picture, and uh, this influence very much upon the planning aspect. Some of the external factors are the economic situation, how the market is, and if it is conducive, or if it is very nice, then we can go ahead and hire more people. If the economy is poor, then we'll be restricting the hiring. We may have to downsize. So these are the factors that affects in an economic point of view. After that, we have the labor market trend, like how the skill set is available. Like in 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 in, for example, like in Tamil Nadu, like we have a shortage of laborers. So in order to address this, we have bringing people from Bihar and UP. So this is the way the labor market behaves, and we have to act accordingly. And finally, the social cultural factors, like how employees are behaving and what they are looking for. For example, some people may go for a part-time job or a remote working options. So they may have certain demands and requirements. So based on these things, the manpower planning also fluctuates. What are all the practices we can see? So when there is a company, they have to come up with some kind of methodology so that they put together efficiently. For example, they have to analyze their workforce, and they have to capture the information about the skill set and what is available. We need to forecast what is needed, like based on the organization goals. We have to check what skill set are required, and where we are, and we have to analyze that. And appropriate training development activities needs to be kicked off so that the employees are trained properly and they are ready to tackle the new requirements. If needed, recruitment has to happen, and it needs to be uh, very powerful. Like we need to understand what we need to recruit, and observe the market, the job market, and see what skill set are available, what cost they are expecting, and which kind of activities they are interested in doing. So we need to attract people so that we get in the right set of people for our requirement. What we need to do is some kind of technology based approach, where we have to have a proper human resource system that operates and monitors this planning and all the employee related activities. And uh, we have to conduct some kind of performance analysis on the employees, so that we know where they are standing and how we can improve them. So these kind of things we can do in the technology related approach. The principles of manpower and planning, we have to some of the points keeps repeating again and again, but this is the to emphasize the importance of these points. So one is the organization goals. We have to align all our planning towards that goal. So that is very important, topmost requirement. And whatever plans and approaches we have, we need to be kind of flexible with that approach. Like the plan may have to change later, when there can be some expansion or some cost cutting and things like that. So the the one which we structure right out should be flexible. So we should aim for optimal resource utilization when we are planning and when we are counting the headcount and requirements. We have to optimally use the resource and find the right people to be at the right place and right moment so that the overall cost comes down. Our approach should be data driven instead of assumptions. So we have to collect all the required data and use them for fighting the analytics and forecast based on the data. Some of the leaders, they may have to leave and their work needs to be transferred to someone else, and it is preferable to find a suitable person inside the organization who can take over and perform the leader's job. So these kind of planning should be there. All these approaches needs to be employee friendly and focused on their satisfaction and their work nature. Only when they are satisfied, the work will be efficient and they will be able to perform better. What is macro manpowering and micro manpowering? So macro manpowering is something to deal with the national levels and industry level situations. And micro manpowering is something very small, like it could be department wise or an organization wise, a small level of discussion. The macro deals with the workforce and trends and policies, whereas the micro deals with the specific needs and the roles that needs to be filled up. The objective of macro is balancing the labor market and supply and demand, whereas the micro manpower, the objective is to align the workforce with the business goals. The macro manpower influences the economic and the policy driven at the large level, whereas the micro influences the business and the strategy driven at the micro level. The time is usually, the macro is a long term process and micro is short to medium term. What are all the difficulties we face as a manpower planning person? Like what do we have to anticipate, and what should we be prepared while preparing this planning activity? So there is definitely a uncertainty in the market situation. So things can go positive or in a negative manner. We need to be prepared to tackle those uncertainty, and even at a large macro level, the economy itself could change. The country's financial situation could change, so that will affect the our current organization needs and the management's requirements. Also, the planning could get disturbed by that. If we do not acquire the data properly, if we don't calculate properly, the analytics are wrong or the data is wrong and things like that, we'll end up in wrong prediction, like our forecast won't be correct. So in those cases, uh, we, what we prepare won't be reliable and it cannot be used. So we need to be make sure that we get accurate data and processes in place and in proper manner. Some of the employees, like, they may not like the new roles or the new project or things like that. They resist changes, and they would not like the uh, changes, and they would like to retain whatever they have been going through. So such cases, we have to um, We have to take care of those incidences and be prepared to handle such cases. As we saw earlier, the skill gaps is something like which is kind of a risk. Like we want some n number and we don't have n number, so we have to try to fill up from the internal employees, or we have to go for the external employees. And when we go for an external employee and trying to get a person with certain skills, the job market may not have skill set. So we may face shortage in that, and that gives that disturbs the flow of the project. Like the project may take time to kick off. So these are all the difficulties we have with the shortage field. Finally, the budget constraint, like we need money for recruitment, training, and development, and even retraining an employee. We need that budget. So if the organization has couldn't offer this or give a good competitive salary to new employee or the existing employee, then the project will face difficulty. The management or the HR, their departments and the employee, if the communication is breaking somewhere, then it is going to be difficult for them to handle properly, and this can result in poor morale, and it will misalign the manpower planning. So we need to ensure that the communication is strong and better. So far, like we have covered what is manpower planning and various activities of manpower planning. So in these perspective, like if we apply these principles and make sure that we get a very good data and analytics and perform this process in a nice manner, we'll be able to get a very good return, and we'll be able to have a smooth flow in the projects. Thank you.